How you going, guys? Dean Simbeck from the World Eaters blog for the Blood God here. I've finally got a copy of the Warhammer 40k 7th edition in my hand, so I wanted to do a bit of a video discussing some of the changes and how they affect Chaos Space Marine players specifically. Some of the new tactics we've got, some of the new options we have, you know, those sorts of changes. Unbound Armies. I don't even know where to start with how much I freaking love the idea of an unbound army. I know there's a lot of controversy and a lot of, you know, hate for the unbound because it can break the game so easily, but I just think unbound is a fantastic new way to field armies because it gives you so many more options that it just, how can that not add fun to the game? You know, it takes me back to like 4th edition where you used to be able to take a Chaos Space Marine army and just say, I want to take tons of berserkers and one bloodthirster, you know, and you can do that now. You used to be able to do it, and then they brought in, you know, 5th and 6th edition where it's like, no, if you want a bloodthirster, you need to take a bunch of bloodletters, you know. No, I didn't like that. You know, I wanted to be able to have just one berserker champion, just go bloodthirster. You know, you can do that now. You know, the Unbound brings so much to the Chaos Space Marine army in the way of allies. It's intense. You know, you can bring an army of just flying monstrous creatures. You know, you can bring an army of just land raiders and terminators. You can make a World Eaters army that's super elite. You know, that's often how I would imagine that they would be fielded. You know, because being a legion that's been torn apart and, you know, fights in war bands, they're not always going to have a ton of berserkers to field. You know, it might just be a lord who's got a couple of land raiders and a bunch of terminators that have survived as their own warband, and now you can actually run that list, and that to me is that's been needed to change for a while. You know, you can also make a really modern Chaos Space Marine army that's just all hellbrutes. You know, you might have a crazed warpsmith out there that's been just mass producing these things, and now he's decided he wants to strike and take all of his hellbrutes to war. You know, you can do that. You can make whatever story you want, and you can actually, you know, represent it on the battlefield. I know that people can abuse it. You know, you could take an army of just 10 bloodthirsters, and people are going to have a hard time versing that. And to be honest, I only think that real dicks are going to do that. You know, like, most people I believe are going to take a similar approach as me. And they're just going to go, you know what, this is fluffy, this is fun, I want to run this army, you know. Plus, realistically, it's not supposed to be as competitive as people make it. It's a game that's designed for fun. So, I think one of the best things about Warhammer is as soon as you can be happy playing and losing, that's when you really start to enjoy the game. You know, if you can play a game and not care whether you win or lose, you're just there to see, you know, an epic battle. That's when you can start going, yeah, bring on your 10 bloodthirsters because I've got fucking 50 land raiders or 50, you know, you might have a whole bunch of Valkyries or something like that, or Vendettas or, you know, whatever, and you can have those epic clashes, and who cares who wins, you know? I mean, I guess if you're in a tournament scene, that's a different situation, but I imagine tournaments will probably police Unbound Armies to some extent. But for the casual pickup game in your gaming club or with your mates, I just think this is intense. Opens up so many options. But the other thing about the Unbound, combined with the new allies, how you can now take, come the Apocalypse armies, you can take those units. It opens up everything that a Chaos Space Marine player could ever want. One of the main things that Chaos players, myself included, have always felt ripped off about was that we don't get any of the new toys that our, you know, loyalist brothers get. I know that we get things like Bloodthirsters and things like, Demon Princes that they don't, so I'm not really complaining. But, it always struck me as odd that things that, like Thunderhammers, or Storm Shields, why don't Chaos get them, We're Space Marines, we should have access to at least similar weapons, Why don't we get Storm Ravens, If they're trying to tell me that World Eaters never had a Storm Raven ever, then what the hell's going on there? How can we have Rhinos but not Storm Ravens, But now, we can take a frickin' Storm Raven, We can take anything. I mean, there are some restrictions to what you can do when it comes to, deploying within 12 inches and that sort of thing. But I mean, who really cares? I can go, okay, I'm going to take a squad of drop pod tactical marines. Chaos can take drop pods now. I mean, yeah, I can't put Chaos Space Marines in a drop pod, but I can just as easily paint or model my tactical marines to suit my World Eaters army. And there you go, you've got a squad of drop podding tactical marines, I can take attack bikes, I can take land speeders, I can take, like I said, Storm Ravens is one I'm particularly excited about, I've always loved the idea of a Storm Raven landing, and a bunch of really cool World Eaters, crazy motherfuckers jumping out and swinging, like, there's books where it happens, there's an audio drama where, I don't know if anybody else has heard it, the Chosen of Khorne audio drama where there's a duel between a bunch of lords and stuff, gladiator style, but one of the lords arrives to the battlefield in a Storm Raven, and the way they describe it just sounds awesome, and it's like, I want to make that, now I can. So I think you're going to hear a lot less complaining from the Chaos Space Marine players in regards to, oh, but the Imperial guys can take Imperial Knights, now you can too, shut up. I think that's fantastic. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Unbound and how that affects the Chaos Space Marine player. It opens up every single option they could possibly ever want. And to be honest, I've been looking at lists, as you can see, I've got a ridiculous amount of stuff, and I've been trying to make a broken Unbound list, and my list hasn't really changed that much. I might add a squad of drop pod marines, or I might add a Storm Raven, or I might add, but my list isn't going to really change that much. The bit where it's going to get really silly is if people go, okay, I'm going to take a Bloodthirster, a Flying Hive Tyrant, and 10 Riptides, that's going to piss me off if people do that sort of stuff. But I mean, no one's going to do that. No one's that stupid. One of the main enjoyment factors of Warhammer is the fluff. It's the story. It's the, creating those battles. I don't think anyone's going to do that because they're not going to enjoy that. How do you get personally involved with your army if it's that ridiculous, So yeah, that's my thoughts on Unbound Armies. Okay, the next major change that I wanted to discuss was the new Psychic phase and the Psychic disciplines. As you can see, I'm World Eaters, Khorne. Psychic stuff is not a huge thing for me, but I have, with this new edition, decided to get into the Demonology side of things, and I've made myself a little display base here with 4 Chaos Sorcerers on it, which are summoning a Bloodthirster, because that's a thing you can do now, you can summon Bloodthirsters. So I've taken unmarked sorcerers just so that it keeps with the fluff, but you can quite easily take Signature ones or Slanesh or whatever. But I think, yeah, that Demonology is something that the Chaos Space Marine players have been wanting forever as well, is that, I mean, it's good to take demons as allies, but being able to actually physically summon the demons to the battlefield when you want them and where you want them, that's something we used to be able to do. And being able to do it again is just fantastic, I think Scenic armies are going to be off the frickin' chain. You can go summon a bunch of pink horrors, and then that mastery level adds to your pool, and then you can summon more, and you can just pretty much infinitely summon, and conjure this massive force of pink horrors or whatever. I think that's going to be a massive boost, but yeah, for the World Eaters players out there, I think that Demonology is still useful, the psychic powers are still useful without straying too far from the fluff, because who's to say that there wouldn't be some Chaos Space Marines that are world eaters that are dedicated to Khorne, that have studied those psychic powers. You know, even though Khorne doesn't favour psychic powers, he needs them. You know, they're things of the warp. You know, whether it be a psychic power or a demon, it's the warp is the warp. You know, so I'm excited to see how that goes. I'm actually bringing these 4 guys because 4 sorcerers, mastery level 3, and spell familiars works out to be exactly 500 points, and I've got a 500 point 7th edition sort of like a practice tournament coming up, so this is what I'll be bringing. So I'll probably do a bunch of battle reports on that just so that people can see, you know, Unbound Demonology in full swing and see see how that goes. But I'm excited for Demonology. I'm excited for the new Psychic phase. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I'd like to see how some armies like, say, Alder go, you know, with the amount of Psychers that they're going to be able to bring. That's going to be formidable, you know, like, are they going to just deny the witch everything you try to do and shut your psychic powers down? Now that you can deny blessings and those sorts of things as well, that's going to be an interesting change. Personally, I'm a real big fan of adding the psychic phase because as a player that very, very rarely uses psychic powers, I often found them a bit confusing, like what power do you use when, how many charge have they used so far, you know, whereas having the warp charge pool and then you just use them all at once and then it's the next phase, I think that's fantastic for players that aren't quite as experienced in psychic powers. I think it's going to be a massive help. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the psychic phase, and I think it's going to be a great. Okay, next we have the tactical objective cards. Now this one is probably the one thing that I'm the most excited about of all of the changes that they've made to this edition, and that's that your objective will now change throughout the game. You know, and you don't have to have the same objectives as your opponent, which I think is perfect, because who's to say that these bloodletters would be trying to achieve the same goal as these guardians? You know, those guardians might be chasing a relic on a planet somewhere that they need for their craft world, and these bloodletters just want to take your fucking head off, you know? So it's silly that you have to both chase the same objective, but now you don't. You know, I can discard any objective card things I get and go for the, you know, what was that challenge one where you get a victory point for every challenge that you issue, you know, or one for every unit that you kill. You know, I can focus more on those sorts of objectives while they flap around trying to gather objective like markers and that sort of thing, you know. I think that's fantastic. It adds fluff to the game, it adds character, and it also adds versatility. You know, every game's going to feel completely different because you're going to be doing completely different things. The other thing that I really like was that you now get the victory points immediately. You don't have to hold the objective all the way to the end of the game, which is fantastic for units like Bloodletters because they deep strike, they get onto the objective, but they always get wiped out so quick because, you know, Bloodletters, cultists, you know, they're toughness 3, they've got crappy armor, you know. They're glorified guardsmen, you know, so they get wiped out so easily, whereas now, all you have to do is be on that objective by the end of your turn, and boom, you've claimed it, you know. All you have to do is, you know, issue some challenges, and boom, you got a victory point, you know. No more, you know, just kill off their troops and then their stuff. No more, you know, wait until the last turn and then jump onto the objectives, you know. The game actually will be tactical the whole way through, which I think that's freaking awesome. And some of those tactical objectives are brilliant, like the, you know, behind enemy lines. You can actually get points if you've got units within 12 inches of their board edge, you know. And it opens up so many tactics, like, I can go, okay, well, if I get D3 victory points, if I have more than 3 units within 12 inches of their objective, I'm going to deep strike my Mayhem pack, all 3 of them, within 12 inches of their board edge. Boom, there's a victory point. You know? I mean, yeah, it means that my Hellbrutes are all the way down the back, but that's probably where they're going to want to be anyway, so... You know, but an army that doesn't have deep striking units might have a harder time getting that objective. But then, you know, they might have other things that they can do better, you know? So I think that's fantastic. It adds versatility, it adds flexibility, it adds, you know, it's just so much more fun to the game, and yeah, the tactical objectives are brilliant. The other thing to note on objectives is now every unit is a scoring unit, which that makes perfect sense to me too, because, you know, why is it that this bloodletter can claim an objective, but this guy can't? You know, he's much bigger than you. He should be able to hold that objective. You know, if he wants it, yeah, it's his, you know. So I love that. I love that now any unit can score. But if your opponent takes, or if you, for that matter, take a Battleforged list, then these bloodletters will override the Bloodthirster, which that adds a tactical advantage to taking the Battleforged, because, to be honest, they had to put something in there, otherwise no one would do it. And I think most people probably still will do it, because that's a pretty massive advantage. If you've got lots of troops, you can cover the board in troops, you're going to be grabbing objectives every turn, because they can't deny you, they can't stop you. And you can make sure that your guys are in the right position to stop them from claiming the objectives. So, and like I said, you don't have to wait until the end of the game, so it's not like you have to worry about them just killing you, because as long as you've got it at the end of your turn, you get the point, and then they can kill you. Who cares? You've got the point, they don't. So, yeah, I think that's going to be massive. Any unit being able to score is going to be massive, especially for armies like the Chaos Space Marines, which haven't always had the best scoring units. Like, I love cultists just because they're so insignificant that, you know, opponents will often overlook them and not fire at them at all. But if they're smart and they decide to, cultists are gone, you know. And other units like Berserkers, too expensive for what they do. You know, you're paying 20 points for something that's going to sit on a backfield objective, or is going to run out to the middle of the field and get blown up. You know, it's not really worth it. And, you know, you Chaos Space Marines, it's too easy to kill a couple of them and have them fall back because they don't have, you know, and they shall not know fear. Or no fear, sorry. So their troops were never their strong point, and now you don't have to focus on those. You know, you can still take them, and I'll probably still spam bloodletters like crazy because I freaking love them. But, you know, you're not, your hands aren't tied. You're literally, you're unbound now. You can do what you want to do, and having any unit score means, you know, these bikers, I freaking love my corn bikers, but they very rarely see table time, because being a fast attack unit, more often than not, they can't score. And that sort of makes them a glorified Berserker unit that can't score. It's like, what's the point of taking that? You know, I bought them because, you know, points for what they do, they're very effective. You know, they're essentially the same points as a Berserker, but they're on a bloody bike, you know, they're so much better. They, that's why I bought them. Plus, I really wanted to convert up some cool Berserkers riding bikes, you know, swinging chainswords or chain axes. I ran out of chain axes, but, you know, I really wanted to convert those up, so that's the main reason I did it. But, you know, now they're going to see tons of table time because they can turbo boost up the field, grab that objective that I need, and then fly off and complete a mission somewhere else. You know, like they've got, I think fast units are going to dominate this edition. Units that can deep strike will also dominate, so I'm happy. You know, things like Mauler Fiends, you know, they are going to dominate in this edition because they're fast, they're strong, you know, and they can now score. They'll push anybody off of an objective. So other things like Helldrakes are going to dominate. I mean, Helldrakes already freaking dominate, but now a zooming flyer can't score, but a gliding one can, or a, whatever you call it, hovering flyers can. So now you can zoom up to the objective, and then in your next turn, you go into hover mode, boom, that objective's yours. I mean, yeah, it exposes you to fire, because you're now hovering, but it's worth it for a victory point, you know, because that's what the game's all about, is capturing those points. So I think that's going to be a massive boost as well. So yeah, the tactical objectives is something that I'm very, very excited about. Okay, the addition of Escalation and Stronghold Assault. They're two things that I'm very excited about too. I would love it if you could use, you know, Reavers and Tower of Skulls and that sort of thing. I think they would probably unbalance the game. that being said, he's nearly 2,000 points, so you can take a shitload of melter guns if you want, and you can take him down. They're not unstoppable, but I understand them wanting to keep that size of a unit to Apocalypse only. That makes perfect sense. I do love that they're adding the Lord of Skulls. You know, personally, he's not very points efficient. You know, he's 900 points, and yeah, like I said, you can take a lot of melter guns for that. You can take a lot of flyers for that. You can take a lot of better units. You know, but I love this model. I love the, you know, converting them to their walking just makes them like this mini Titan. It's like, yeah, you can have your Chaos, you can have your Imperial Knights. I've got these guys, you know, these guys are freaking bitchin'. So, being able to take them in standard games without people going, oh, we're not playing Escalation, you know, like, that's fantastic. Being able to use these units, they're going to see a lot more table time. You know, it might even be worth painting them now. You know, because, I mean, before that, it wasn't, nobody would ever play on me, you know, it was too iffy on the rules, whereas now it's cut and dry. You know, they are allowed, D-weapons are allowed, which I do like that they sort of nerfed D-weapons that a little bit, because they were too powerful. Although I wish they didn't do it to close combat D-weapons. You know, I think a gun that's D-weapon is very powerful. You can blow something up before it even gets a chance to do anything, but something like this, you know, by the time he gets into close combat, he should be able to just instant kill whatever he attacks. He should be able to just ignore your invulnerable, ignore everything, and just kill him, because the reward for getting into close combat should be stronger than it currently is, I think. That being said, I highly doubt anything's going to withstand a charge from one of these guys. But, yeah, I love that they've added in the escalation rules. I really, really would have liked it if they made some comment on Forge World. You know, even just the tiniest little, hey dudes, Forge World's cool. You know, because that's always been a sore topic. You know, because it's not in the core rulebook. Does that mean it's not allowed? You know, it's not a Games Workshop publication. It's Forge World. You know, so I would have really liked them to clarify that. I think they clarified so many rules in this edition and made it as crystal clear as they possibly could. They did a fantastic job. I think they just dropped the ball a little bit on the Forge World side of things. But yeah, adding in all the new upgrades and stuff for the Bastions, being able to take the escape hatches and all that Stronghold Assault stuff, plus all the different, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Fortifications. All the different fortifications that you can now take. You can make an Imperial Guard army that's pretty much, you can literally castle up. You can take all of the bastions and shit you want, run a row of basilisks behind it, fill the trenches with troops, and there you go, you've got this wicked fortress, you know, and that's an army I would love to verse. Personally, I'd love to own one, but I'm sort of doing a chaos collection, as you can see, you know, but I mean, I think that would be, it would be fun, it would be fluffy, and it would be exciting. It'd be, you know, cinematic having that big fortress, you know, because more often than not, almost every game I play, the amount of money people spend on their models is way over percentaged to, is that even a word, percentaged? Either way, they spend way more on their models for their armies than they do on terrain, and more often than not, you'd be playing on a kitchen table with a freaking fruit bowl, you know, and it's like, you know, I would love to see somebody who takes all of those fortifications and makes them, you know, part of their army. I love that about 6th, when you could take the Aegis defense lines and the Bastions, but, you know, expanding on that is fantastic. I really hope they get in some, you know, some faction-specific fortifications, but, yeah, I don't really think they will, but I would like them to. Personally, I'm lucky that being a Chaos player, I can just sort of convert up the Imperial Bastions the same way as we have Imperial vehicles, you know. Or you can always convert your own. Nobody's going to stop you. But yeah, I like the addition of the Stronghold Assault. I love the addition of Escalation. I love the clarification that they've done on that. And yeah, I think that's going to be another exciting change to the game. The other big change that I'm really excited about is vehicle damage. You know, there was nothing more frustrating than when, you know, you drop in your Land Raider, they'd fire upon it with, you know, the Dreadnought autocannon guys. You know, my brother has Grey Knights, and he used to always take the Cyphermen Dreadnoughts, and you drop your Land Raider in it, and it just get glanced to death in 2 seconds. You know, and while that can still happen, they now can't get that explodes result as easily. You know, like I can drop in my Hellbrutes, and if they've got a missile launcher, since it's now only AP3, you're not going to explode it. You might rip a couple hull points off of him, but he's still kicking. Yeah, those one-hit wonders aren't quite as present. You know, they can open into your rear armor with a heavy bolter, and they can get as many penetrating hits as they want. But since it's only AP4, they're not going to explode you. And yeah, I think that's a massive boost for vehicles. Anybody that doesn't think that that's exciting for vehicle armies, and anybody who doesn't think that that's something that we've needed, I have to disagree. I think that, you know, rhinos are now that tiny bit more useful, because you used to get first blood on them all the time. You know, you pop a single missile into a rhino, and you're going to probably explode it. And then that's first blood, done. Whereas now it's like, well, it's a lot harder to explode them, and that's what you need to get that first blood. You can immobilize it, weapon destroy it, shake it, stun it. That's not going to get you the first blood. So I think now making those vehicles harder to get the explodes result is definitely going to make vehicles more present on the battlefield. And also, the thing I'm most excited about is it makes units like the Mauler Fiend and the Defiler, and or anything with it will not die on a vehicle is now massive, because since it's harder for them to get that explodes result, people are going to really be relying on chipping away at your hull points. So if you can regenerate those hull points, you know, it's going to make you last so much longer. Whereas previously, you know, they're just going to explode you. Sooner or later, they're going to roll that explodes result, regardless of how many hull points you have. I don't know about everybody else's personal experience with hull points, but I've very rarely lost a unit to hull points. Almost every unit that I lost was an explosion. And while that'll probably still happen with melter and las cannons and all those sorts of things, rail guns, I think that, you know, that'll still happen a lot, but now I very highly doubt I'll lose any of these units to just hull points, because I'll be generating them, and I highly doubt, you know, the amount of times that something explodes is going to be a lot less. You know, you'll be able to get your troops up there in their rhinos safer. You'll be able to get your Vindicator up the front and get to actually fire it. You know, I very rarely get to shoot that thing. You know, Hellbrutes will be stronger. You know, I think adding that to vehicles is going to make them so much more viable, and yeah, it's going to make them so much more exciting to play. And yeah, just generally, it's the boost vehicles needed, because I don't think vehicles were as strong as they were in previous editions. They were still strong. I mean, vehicles will always be strong, because there's always that chance that somebody won't bring the right equipment. You know, you can bring a Land Raider to a game. If they don't have melter, well, it's not going anywhere. You know, it's going to keep kicking. So vehicles will always have that, but I think now it's a little bit more concrete. They're a little bit more solid with their strengths. So I think that's a massive advantage that vehicles now have. I think we'll see Mech Guard will dominate this edition, because they've got the speed of vehicles and they've also got the durability of vehicles. So I think the changes they've made to the vehicle damage chart is very welcome, in my opinion. Plus, I mean, I'm not too scared, because I'll still smash them open with my monstrous creatures, so, you know, whatever. But yeah, I'm a big fan of those new changes. Alright, that's pretty much my thoughts on 7th edition, so don't forget to comment in the comment box down below, or join the discussion on my Facebook page, www.facebook.com, blog for the Blood God. And yeah, there's always conversations on there about, you know, whether it be rules, tactics, whether it be modeling, you know, stuff, or yeah, there's always something fresh on that Facebook page. So make sure you pop over and give it a like and join the chaos. So yeah, that was my thoughts on 7th edition, and yeah, thank you for watching.